So how you doing, Logan?
Doing good. Just trying to make sure all my stuff works properly and keep the ball rolling. You know what I mean? It's just constant band dad duties and everything else. But just grateful to be on a release cycle again and putting out new music. It's always fun.
Absolutely. So I wanna talk about a few things, and you guys have been around for 20 years off and on. So I would like to talk about your history. Let's talk about what led into you falling in love with music and whatever bands you may have played in before, and what led into Scarlett O'Hara.
Sure. Cliche. It's one of those deals where you're kind of just always with an instrument or whatever. I come from a musical family. They all kind of dabble in music, whether it be guitar, piano, or anything like that. So I was kind of exposed to it, and I always had little toy guitars laying around. So I just gravitated towards it, I guess. And, me personally, I started out probably what how most do, listening to like the classic rock that your parents are into and everything, and then kind of like going off and exploring your own. So, I was real early into like like classic rock, the ACDCs and Metallicas and all of those big guys. And uh middle school came around and I joined my first cover band, just playing a bunch of those 70s rock songs. And uh around that time, like the underground kind of alt scene. We didn't really have a name for it then, but those early bands like Chiodos and Skylit Drive and Alasana, all of them, Alexis on Fire, they were kind of like what we were listening to, like the kids, I guess,
Yeah.
that were into the heavier stuff. And I don't know, like I got pulled into that direction. I really liked like the screaming and everything, and it was like the natural progression from where I was at, just going, heavier, but not going into like the past, but into the future. So I started listening to a bunch of that stuff, and one of my other, really good buddies, Alex Samadorov, was in another group locally. He joined a band, and I was in some whatever local band. I'm not even gonna dignify it at this point because it wasn't even a band. It was just us trying to make noise that sounded good, not knowing really anything. And just me hanging out with my other buddy, Alec. It turned out that they needed another guitar player for their group, and that group was Scarlett O'Hara. And this was like the very first kind of lineup renditions that we had, and we were swapping out different people and everything. And about a year later, finally came to like the solidified lineup that we had for a while, and it just kind of developed like that. We had a really good scene at the time. It was super active, and all of those bands at that time in the early 2005 to like 2008, all of those groups that were touring, they would always stop at our venue. So we were exposed to Asking Alexandria super early, and like Bring Me the Horizon. They played this like ranch festival basically back in the day at our hometown, because this was, they were big, but they weren't like arena headliner big at that point. So it was just kind of one of those things that was really not mainstream at the time, so there wasn't a lot of listeners, but the scene was super active, and it just was a good launching pad for Scarlett. And we ended up getting traction and just kind of started playing a lot of shows, and one thing led to another. And one day on MySpace, Rise Records, sent us something in their inbox, and that was literally how we got the deal. And from there, we've just kind of been keeping on and trying to put out new stuff every, as often as we can.
Thank you, Tom.
Right.
So
Long ass answer, but we got, 20 years is a lot of time for a group.
it is uh, the 2000s, especially the mid 2000s. It was a special time, and if you weren't a teenager during that time, you'll never know, But I graduated in 2005, so I mean it's all right there in that time for me, And how how did MySpace? How did you utilize MySpace back then?
Yeah, I mean that was like instrumental to the band at that point because MySpace had kind of just rose to like serious popularity, where it was like a thing, and we kind of didn't go into it thinking like this is gonna be like what social media ended up being. It was just more of like an expanded like AIM chat room is what we were all kind of used to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, at that time. So it wasn't like this whole thing that it is now. So we really didn't understand like the power of it initially, but once we started like seriously interacting and they had like a the live feature, we're gonna go live at this time and everything. Once we started doing that, uh our vocalist kind of really got into it, and he figured out that early like strategy to use for social media that people are using now and everything. And it absolutely got us out there to a point we'd never be at before, because I remember at one point we had released a new song, and we put it on MySpace, and at some point they had put in like a chart where you can see how many plays you get in relation to other artists in your state and everything, and in your genre. And for us, we had like a crazy number on there, and we couldn't believe it. So we ended up getting an insane amount of plays, which in today's time it'd probably be really bad, like like 10 or 12,000 plays. But for that, we were like, holy shit, we've never done that before. And prior to that, it was like, what was it? It was FM something. There was some website where you could put music on,
Yeah.
FM radio or something like that. But it really wasn't like MySpace. So once we did that, that was totally what kind of exposed us on a national scale, because we're from a small little town, the very last one before you hit Mexico, So it's like it's really hard to break out of that regional area
Yeah.
unless you're like doing serious touring, and that was hard for us because we were in high school at the time. So the fact that we could, blast it to everybody on our friend list and everything was insane. And if that didn't come about, we would absolutely not have gotten a deal and stuff. It just wouldn't have happened.
What were some of the first tours that you guys jumped on?
Oof. So we got the deal in our sophomore year, so we couldn't like legally leave or anything. We had to finish school and all this stuff. So Rise was pretty lenient in that fact, and they would line us up with shows, whether it be on spring break or in the summer. And our first real taste of hard touring was with the Skylit Drive and Motionless in White. So those were like some super cool ones. We were on with Attila, Woe Is Me, so a bunch of those, ones that are still doing it now. And, it was a lot of fun, but it was like a huge learning experience because all those guys were already like really used to it. And that was our first one ever. So they put us through the ringer, and, we annoyed some people, the TMs and everything, but, it's expected when you're a bunch of 17-year-olds. Our drummer was 16 at the time. So it was like,
Literally
it
a
was a
bunch of
trip.
kids. Yeah.
Literally, yeah. And how our parents let us go off and do it, like I don't know, but I love them for allowing it. Thank you. I wouldn't do it.
So what what do you think led to Scarlett not getting in that upper, like breaking through that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it I think is just the fact that we were like so young and we didn't really know how to like navigate the world of being a professional band and a touring band, going from like just a high school group. So we really didn't have any like guidance, like much on the industry side and everything. So a lot of mistakes were made uh in those early years and everything, and I'm talking about when we were literally 17 and 18. uh, and that kind of, you know sets a certain tone for a little bit. But I think most of it, what ended up happening was there was some management shifting in Rise. I don't know if there was a change in ownership or something. I think something like that might have gone on. And when they did that, they restructured their lineup, and a bunch of groups were not renewed for their additional albums that they were set to release. And we were one of them, and we were planned to do 3 albums with them. So we got cut short at one, and it's just the nature of it. It happens. But I'm grateful for the experience, and it happened at such an early point in our like band career thing that we've been able to shift and kind of come back to a certain degree. And where we're at, we're all happy with it. We're able to do everything that we'd like to do. And we've played a bunch of the shows we wanted to do. So at this point, we're grateful and just happy to still be around 20 years later. It's hard.
Right. Well, especially during that time, everything in the music industry was changing so quickly that no one could even not even comprehend, but not even be able to figure out and pinpoint like, well, what's gonna be happening in the next 5 years. And it went from physical music to downloading to streaming in like a decade, really. And it's like, what are you supposed to do with that? And you guys came in right when social media is starting to become a thing, like you said, but no one knew how to really utilize it correctly
Mm-hmm.
because again, it was all new to all of us, to everyone. Like, because there's things like what I'm doing right now, I wish I would have been doing 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewing people and having a magazine. Like that was something I wanted to do, but back then I was like, well, how do you do that? Like, because everything was still a little the old school. Like, well, if I'm going to have a magazine, it has to be a publication. It has to be an actual physical thing. But
Mm-hmm.
things have changed so much. Um, so when you guys went on hiatus, um, what were you doing? What was happening?
Just trying to do all the normal life stuff that we really didn't get to address because we'd been in the band world and primed for that since basically our sophomore year. So we were constantly writing. Still, we were all still, the Alec and Arnie are two of my best friends. So Arnie lives at my house, so you know what I mean. So I enjoy hanging out with them and writing and everything. And during that time, I mean, all of us, got our degrees in college and everything, and did all the normal stuff that's expected from society. And we were writing in between and putting releases out and doing tours here and there. But it really wasn't until 2019 that we started like doing it on a consistent basis. And we have Moses now in the group and everything, and that's just been you know a welcomed addition to everything because he's in the same mindset as all of us, and he's like Alec and Arnie's one of my best friends, so it just makes everything a lot better. And all of that kind of was happening during that time, and we had a bunch of material written, kind of demoed out, you know poorly demoed out because we're not that good at using the DAW and all that. But we were always trying to work on it and was just kind of waiting for when everything kind of made sense. And 2018 we released Welcome Back to the Brodeo, the album, and toured that. And 2019 was great. We were doing lots of shows, and then COVID hit, and then that was like another thing. That was another landscape shift uh, in the industry. And that kind of it helped us out a lot, though, honestly. Like it kind of paused everything, and then when it all came back, we were in like a really primed, ready position to do everything again. So we got real lucky and got on a bunch of real big festivals, and that kind of led us to getting on Octane, and then that led us to working with different producers, and kind of all led to where we're at now in some weird way, because Red Rum was totally influenced by the previous album that we did in 2023, but just with a little more influence from our previous heavier releases.
Right. So tell us about the new stuff. What's the
It,
immediate future?
well, we are doing singles right now. We're putting some stuff out. Whether that leads to another body of work, I don't know. I can't say anything right now. So, don't want anybody calling me all pissed off, but yeah, we have a lot of really good songs we're putting out. Great videos. It's all in the same kind of flavor as Red Rum. We wanted to do something that was leaning real heavy into like the cyberpunk atmospheric kind of deal. We kind of touched on that in the Overthrown album. Overthrown's a good example of like the predecessors to what we're doing right now, and then like Midnight in Eden. That was one of my favorite songs that we did off the last album. So it influenced a lot on this one, and that one was really heavy electronic, really kind of dark, almost like getting into like a Blade John Wick kind of vibe, when they're doing that. And so we were like, how do we expand on that, but make it just a little bit heavier, because we had heavy guitars in the previous album, but they weren't aggressive guitars. You know what I mean? They were low tuned and everything, but they weren't like angry guitar. And I wanted to put that in this next mix that we were doing. So we kind of took the DNA from Overthrown and the Welcome Back to the Brodeo album, and its baby is Red Rum. So all the other stuff is in that same lane. We do have some that are a little bit lighter, but that's only just to give the ears a little break before we go back into the heavy and chaotic and everything. So it rounds itself out once everything is out.
Hell yeah, brother.
It's
So
gonna be nice.
uh, the band name. I mean, I know who Scarlett O'Hara is, but as far as a band name, how did that come about?
So yeah, number one question. And when we got a deal, one of the first things they told us was like this whole story about the name and everything to make it seem, like it was more than it was. But it just straight up at the time, a lot of the groups were that we were listening to in that kind of underground screamo,
Norma Jean.
post. Exactly. Norma Jean, Gwen Stacy, Maylene and the Sons of Disaster, So we were into all of that kind of stuff. And so Scarlett O'Hara popped up, and uh, we're like, hell yeah, it sounds good.
It
We
does.
never read the book or anything, or the movie or whatever. It was just, we got assigned to it in school, but we didn't care about that. Man, so yeah, so we thought it sounded cool. It didn't date it in any way. It didn't we weren't like the blah blah blahs or something like that. So it was just one of those names that kind of, we thought it sounded iconic at the time, and so it's like it's Coca-Cola kind of,
Mhm.
So we went with it, and we got lucky, because I know that at the time there were other people that were doing like the name Scarlett O'Hara, like Danny Stills from Drop Dead Gorgeous. One of his solo projects was actually called Scarlett O'Hara. So we got lucky in that bidding war of the name and everything. It just kind of stuck, and haven't had any IP issues yet. So
Sweet.
so
Well, I mean,
hoping,
20 years in,
right.
think you're good.
Hopefully, unless Warner or one of them has something to say about it. But
All right,
well, we're good.
I got three questions for you.
Yes, sir.
So the first thing will be, where are the best tacos?
Oh man, shoot, that's hard. Because down here, I mean, that's like a religion. You know what I mean? Everybody makes really good ones. If you wanted to be safe in the valley, if you were to come down here, I would say go to El Pato, because they have everything there. It's super good. Laredo Taco Company is super sick. Taco Zarape. I could go on, man. It's like that's like our bread and butter over here. But yeah, if I had to pick one right now, I like to get El Pato myself. So Valley people don't crucify me for it. Our mothers make it better, I know, but he wants to know a place. So
Exactly. So the second question would be, what is the coolest, neatest thing that you own that's like music related, like memorabilia or something that was gifted to you, or just anything, a rare item, something cool?
I'm gonna plug myself shamelessly and say my Aristides 060 Blood Dragon. It's kind of like my signature guitar deal, but it's my pride and joy. I had the guys at Aristides. They're an amazing, boutique guitar company, and everyone's using them right now. Mike Stringer, all the big guys in the scene. So I got lucky and got in with them early in 2020, and they made this guitar for me based off of the colors from the last previous albums that I've done. So the albums are real kind of neon, Dan Mumford, inspired stuff and everything. So I did a real heavy crackle on it over a neon gradient, and then I put a complete from the first fret to the last fret that grid mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with like dark wave or synth wave or anything,
Mhm.
but it's that mountain and the sun and everything. So it's a crazy fretboard. It's an amazing, hey, there we go. So exactly. Yeah, so you take one look at it and you instantly know it's called the Blood Dragon because of Far Cry 3, and yeah, I love it. It's my baby, and I have another one on the way because I love it so much, and it's an identical clone to it. So uh, go check out Aristides if you're in the market for a really amazing guitar.
Fuck yeah. So then the last question will be, for everyone that has been with you all along through the journey, family, friends, fans, and then the fans that don't even know you yet, people that haven't discovered Scarlett O'Hara, what do you say to them?
We always work really hard to put out the best of our abilities. Everything that we do is always 100% with love and effort. And, a big reason is because we've been around for so long, and it's only because people have been continuously listening to us. Our Spotify throughout the entirety of our career has always, stayed. It hasn't dipped below a certain deal, and that tells us like our fans are always, the listeners and everything are still there, and we really, appreciate it. I don't know anything harder right now than trying to make it in this kind of changing landscape all the time in music. So without them, we won't be able to do anything, and uh, as long as we're a group, everything that we do will stay, to an expected quality from Scarlett. And, we just take it really seriously and appreciate all of it.
Oh yeah, man. Well, Logan, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you,
Yes,
and I
sir.
look forward to new music, and I look forward to hopefully catching you guys on the road sometime.
For sure. Just keep an eye out. I mean, we're doing our best to get out there and everything. We're working with the correct channels to get back on the road. So it is something that we're actively, working on with the team and everybody. So, we will get back on the road sometime.
Fantastic. All right, Logan. Thank you, sir, and take care.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You too. Have a good one. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.